Welcome back. We're gonna watch another TED Talk. It's a TED-Ed about how a transplant works by Ronnie Shanawada. Hope I said that right. Probably not. Um, I don't know. Just to I forgot to do a video yesterday in light of recent news about like the another mass shooting. This one was in Texas. Um, coming hot off the heels of the Buffalo one. Honestly, when I was hearing about it, I thought it was the same shooting. They were just like updating the 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 count of dead people, and it was not. It was like a different one. So that was really awful and sad, and just feel like there's different avenues. You know, like there had to have been something that could have been done to prevent something like that from happening. And it's, if you like look it up, it's something that's like quite common in the United States for some reason. And during the months and months of COVID where we were locked down, of course, not a single shooting, not a single school shooting. And now that we're somewhat back, and now this is like the mark of normality in America, and it just does not feel good. So we should watch this heart transplant video and learn something.
Your heart beats more than 100,000 times a day. In just a minute, it pumps over 5 liters of blood throughout your body. But unlike skin and bones, the heart has a limited ability to repair itself. So if this organ is severely damaged,
Whenever I like think about a heart, I always think about that story, or like multiple stories of when an old couple has been together for a very long time, and one of them, passes away. The other one has the potentiality to die from heartache because their heart just can't take the excess stress, the extra pumping, the extra work that it has to do to keep you from exploding inside, and it kind of overworks itself and just stops. And it's like sad and somewhat lovely at the same time. If that makes sense.
there's often only one medical solution: replacing it. Today, nearly 3,500 heart transplants are performed each year in a complex and intricate procedure with no room for error. The process begins by testing potential recipients to ensure they're healthy enough for this demanding operation. Doctors are especially concerned with identifying immunocompromising illnesses or any other conditions that could compromise a patient's chance of survival.
There's like a movie on Netflix, not the Will Smith one where he like the 8 pound movie or whatever. There's like another one where they're the board of directors in a hospital because every time uh, a transplant has to go through, they need to decide, like especially for a heart, they need to decide who's worthy enough to get a heart transplant. And it's like a room of 8 people in that hospital, and they have to decide like, okay, this person died, and we can give that heart to these 3 candidates, and they have to like go through the pros and cons, and even to like they break it down all the way to um thinking about this person's future, and like, oh, this person has a kid, this person doesn't have a kid, oh, but this person smokes, this one doesn't, this one's trying to turn their life around, this one has like a condition, a pre-existing condition that was hurting his heart, and so on and so forth. And it's like it's it's crazy that we know we need um replacement parts, and we're more worried about like the bottom line, because like eventually in the movie it goes to like a point where the board, like a different board that oversees the hospital, sends out a person and tells them like, hey, this person is wants to donate $25 million if you give his son the heart or whatever. And it's like that weighs a heavy factor because that can also help, fix up the hospital, help them get more equipment, help them save more lives in the end. But it's such a shitty, like, in the moment, it's such a shitty thought to give the heart to someone because they can give you more money. But then they went on to break it down and us under the assumption that that 25 million can go into saving even more lives, thousands of more lives. So not only is it like benefiting the hospital, but it also could potentially benefit thousands of more people rather than saving, one person and their family of five or whatever the case was. And it was just really heavy to try and break down, and I couldn't put myself in that place of like who do you pick in that moment. It's something to think about.
The next step is to match an eligible recipient with a heart donor. Donors are often comatose patients with no chance of being resuscitated, or victims of a fatal event whose hearts are still healthy. In both cases, these patients need to be registered as an organ donor or have their families give consent. And even when a heart is available, surgeons can't just pair any donor with any recipient. The recipient's immune system will view a transplanted heart as a foreign organism that must be attacked. So doctors need to match recipients with donors that share their blood type and have similar antigens. If a match can be made, the surgery can begin. Once the donor's heart is confirmed to be healthy, the organ is immersed in an ice slush and injected with a solution to induce cardiac arrest. These treatments stop the heart from pumping to ensure it can be removed cleanly. Surgeons then place the organ in a mix of cold saline and preservation solution. This is when the clock starts. Disconnected from its blood supply, the heart's cells start taking on damage from lack of oxygen. The organ
Anytime I see this shit in like a show or a movie, it like blows my mind that it's just in a tiny little box like that. Like it's wrapped around in some ice. Um, it's in a like thin sheet, little blanket. There's just some ice, and it's just fucking sloshing it around. It's like, what if he drops that shit, or what if he like beats it up too much?
will only remain viable outside the body for a few hours, so it needs to reach its recipient as fast as possible. Once the heart arrives, the recipient is put under general anesthesia. The surgeon makes an incision down the length of the chest, cutting through the breastbone to separate the rib cage and expose the heart. To keep blood flowing while they remove the damaged organ, surgeons use a cardiopulmonary bypass machine. This takes over the heart's job, generating enough force to push blood through the patient's circulatory system. After the old heart is removed,
I saw like there was a post a long time ago that the person like was in that machine for like 2 days or something, and it like really fucks you up being in that machine for some reason.
surgeon begins sewing the
Probably because
donor
like
heart into place.
it's not as good as a
This
heart.
is an incredibly precise process where each blood vessel and artery must be carefully attached to avoid leaks. The
That's
procedure
crazy.
can last several hours, potentially longer if there's scar tissue from previous surgeries. Once it's finished, the bypass machine is turned off and blood is allowed to flow into the aorta. Doctors carefully monitor the new heart to ensure it's beating on its own before sewing the recipient back up. Even after the procedure is complete, there's still work to be done. Surgeons are unable to directly connect the heart to the recipient's nervous system, and it can take years for the body to fully innervate the new organ. During this period, the transplanted organ has a higher resting heart rate and risk of stroke, making exercise difficult and dangerous. And since it's incredibly rare to find a perfect match between donor and recipient, The immune system will also have some response to the new heart. Immunosuppressive drugs can help manage the risk of rejection, but they also leave patients open to contracting dangerous infections.
You know what? It probably, you know that old saying that like your skin you're a different person every 7 years because like every single part of your body is like a new cell. So it probably takes like 5 to 7 years for your body to acclimate to the new heart. Get, holy shit, dude! Getting a new heart.
It requires constant monitoring and testing to balance these two concerns. Despite these challenges, about 70% of heart transplant recipients survive for at least 5 years after the operation, and just over 20% live another 20 years. So, when this procedure is successful, it's truly life saving. Unfortunately, people in developing countries are often unable to access this surgery, and many viable hearts can't be donated due to legal and regulatory issues. Thousands of people remain on waiting lists, and many are never able to find a suitable donor. But what if we could just 3D print a heart for someone?
What I'm talking about, 3D printing shit. Isn't it crazy though that even though if they get a new heart, that they only survive another like 5 years? Could you imagine getting a fucking heart and then you clap out? You need a new heart every 5 years. Like it's basically winning the lottery to get a heart, and the fact that you need one every potentially a new one every 5 years sounds awful, bro. Damn. Anyway, that was pretty interesting. Pretty cool, pretty cool. See you guys later.